Welcome to the Six Figure Flipper podcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with real estate investors from around the globe to empower you on your wealth building journey ahead. Here's your host, Matt Theriault.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Six Figure Flipper. If you're a new real estate investor or just coming across the podcast looking for some fresh content, welcome. Excited to have you listening into the show today. Got a great guest for you guys, Mr. Matt Theriault. Matt is a Marine Corps Desert Storm veteran who enjoyed 15 successful years in the music business as a record producer and label owner. The dude was killing it back in the day in the music space, and he shares a lot about that journey and how it shifted, and really without having any wealth, without any passive income, without really having any backup plan, he was left back at ground zero, figuring out what it was he was going to do next. And when the digital download killed the record store, he virtually found everything that he had built become obsolete in a matter of months. And the demise of his music business was, that point where he was basically forced to start life over personally, professionally from square one at the age of 34. And that was an extremely humbling experience for him, as he shared. And he went on to transition to real estate investing, and he talks all about that journey. And so if you're somebody that is, looking to jump into real estate and transition out of one industry to the next, or maybe you want to add this a part of your, wealth building vehicle long term and kind of do this on the side, this is a really good episode because we talk a lot of X's and O's and how he was able to do that, how you can do that and kind of follow this model. And as he transitioned from a 7-figure-a-year earner to doing $7 an hour bagging groceries, he then jumped into real estate and became extremely successful at it and just was a student. And he shares a lot of those learning lessons along the way. Now he has a cash flow portfolio of over 100 plus units that he's built up over the last 10 years. He's enjoying financial freedom and independence, has a great real estate podcast as well with epic real estate investing. So we got a good show for you guys today. You're really going to enjoy this one. And be sure to have your pen and paper handy because there's a lot of note taking when it comes to some of the gems that Matt was dropping. So before we jump into this interview real quick, be sure to download this month's free resource, which is the Run Your Rehab Project Like a Pro guide. I get asked all the time, hey, if I'm not a contractor, hey, if I don't know how to swing a hammer, can I be a successful real estate investor flipping houses or understanding the construction side to be able to wholesale a house properly? Or heck, if you just want to remodel your house, do it the right way. I created a full comprehensive guide from start to finish that gives you not only downloadables and documents within that, it gives you the complete roadmap to it. So you can get that for free, only available for all the listeners on this podcast and of this show. You get it for free. All you have to do is head over to mattaitchison.com, head over to the products section, and you'll see all kinds of free resources that you can get in addition to the Run Your Rehab Project Like a Pro guide, or just text the word Like a Pro, all one word, no spaces, Like a Pro, to 44222. It'll ask for your email and shoot you that guide right back over. Now, also get lots of questions from listeners who want real estate investing coaching. We know that individuals who have a coach, have a mentor, are that much more likely to succeed and to succeed a whole lot faster, to be able to avoid a lot of the pains and pitfalls that many new investors make, or maybe you're looking to scale to that next level. You just keep hitting a ceiling. We can help you out with that. Feel free to check out the link in the show notes, in the show description below, and learn more about our coaching options, or you can send an email over to mattia@sixfigureflipper.com. With that being said, I don't want to waste any more time. Matt's got some bombs that he's going to drop on you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into today's interview with Matt Theriault.
Well, I'm excited to welcome to the show Matt Theriault. What's going on, brother?
Hey, nice to see you, Matt.
So we are fellow Californians investing in one of the craziest markets in the country right now.
That's right.
And you're in Southern California?
Southern California and Glendale, specifically just north of downtown LA.
Awesome. And so for your particular business model, and I know we're going to kind of reverse engineer back up a little bit and hear how you got into all of this, but what's your main focus right now? What are you guys getting into? What are you finding most profitable in your business right now?
Sure. Well, we've been buy and hold investors pretty much from the beginning. That's always our intent with every deal or opportunity that comes across our desk. But we do flip a lot because most of the stuff that we get is like stuff that we don't want to hold, or just we're not going to hold it for one reason or other, but we don't want to lose money on all those marketing dollars and all those efforts, so we can still make a profit from those deals we don't want to keep. But our intent is to hold everything.
So we're going to talk a lot about, obviously, cash flow, passive income, being that's the holy grail of real estate investing, the key to financial freedom, and just unlocking, the life that most people are attracted to for real estate in the first place. But take us back to the beginning when you were a newbie, or, what you did in the very, very beginning, and kind of what attracted you to real estate in the first place.
Right. Well, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years or so of my life in the music business. And that was the dream job, that was the dream career. That was, living and flourishing off your passion that so many people strive to do. And I just did it. Like, it was kind of, I don't know, not an accident, just coincidentally people happened to pay me for what I did. So I just ended up there. And
were you rapping? Were you like?
Yeah, I was a producer, and then I had a label deal with EMI. So I had major label distribution. We were a small little independent hip hop label, but we had major label presence in retail. And so we did really well with that for a long time. And then, one day we just kind of woke up and stuff essentially stopped selling. Like, we just hit a wall. We had no idea what was going on. In hindsight, it's crystal clear. It was the emergence of the whole digital download and our fan base. And I think any fan base that was attracted to independent music, like whether it was independent rock or independent dance or independent hip hop, they really embraced that digital download before anybody else. And so they changed their buying habits really quickly. And, we felt it almost immediately. And in 6 months, we were out of business.
Wow.
It turned the whole industry upside down, but it turned us over really quickly. I mean, that audience or that fan base grabbed on and embraced that form of music distribution so quickly and so intently that, it probably put us out of business before most people even knew what a digital download was, like before iTunes was even around. And so anyway, I got off on a tangent. I get passionate, upset about it sometimes.
You're like, man, I should have been a Grammy best-selling artist.
Oh yeah, I was on my
digital downloads.
I was going to be Puff Daddy. That's what I was determined to be. And anyway, so in 6 months we were bankrupt. Filed for divorce. I went out and hit the job market, found there wasn't a whole lot of value or demand for an out-of-work music entrepreneur. And so I ended up bagging groceries. I went from a 7-figure year to $7 an hour and really quickly, almost overnight.
Wow. And
I had to eat, right? So for 6 months, I did that, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I didn't have a plan B. I was 34 years old, so I felt like, wait a minute, I'm already an adult, right? And this wasn't supposed to happen to me. And so it took me about 6 months to figure out that if I was going to change it, it was going to be up to me.
Right.
I really missed my lifestyle. I really missed the money. I missed the freedom. And the most unlikely mentor came to me. It was the grocery store manager. And he coincidentally was 34 years old himself. He started there out of high school, bagging groceries. And so he was only 2 years away from his 20-year pension. And he pulled me into his office one day and just kind of opened up this little book. And he had pictures of all of his buildings. He had about half a dozen apartment buildings. And he just showed me, like, I'm going to retire in 2 years. I'm going to get 80% of my salary from the grocery store. And then I've got this much from my apartment buildings, which is actually almost double what I'm making from my pension. And I'm going to be out here at the age of 38, and I'll be done. And I was like, wow, that really resonated with me. And he said something to me that I've probably repeated at least 1,000 times. He said, Matt, he's like very up in his high chair and on his pedestal. He goes, real estate, it's the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth. And I was like, well, that sounds good to me. I have no other options. That was the best thing I heard in the last 6 months. So I would say within 48 hours, I was enrolled in school to get my real estate license. I thought that's what you were supposed to do. And it only took me 4 years to figure out that, well, if this is where all the money is in real estate, I think I'm sitting on the wrong side of the desk.
Yes, seriously.
So I made a big decision and made that transition to become a real estate investor. I was no longer going to represent other people in the buying and the selling of their properties. I was going to represent myself. I was going to do it myself. I was going to make the profit. And so I made a large investment in my education and went ahead forward. And I could say in 3.5 years, 4 years, was able to exit the rat race, so to speak. I wasn't rich, wasn't wealthy, but I got my passive income to exceed my monthly expenses, which wasn't much, but I was independent. I had options. And, here we are today with Epic Real Estate as our company, and we show people how to do what we do. We work with busy professionals and to help them do it. And then we also have a fund where we do it for people. So that's where we are today.
I love it, man. That's a great story. And honestly, I think a lot of people can relate to this, whatever capacity or context of life. There's those moments where you're humbled, right? You're humbled and you really have to kind of check your ego at the door. And then obviously once you kind of let the dust settle a little bit, it's all right, what is the best path to helping me accomplish my goals based on what those actually are? And so you identified real estate being that vehicle for you. Where were you financially, emotionally, physically when you made your very first deal?
Oh, good question. Okay. So the program I was in, the mentor that I had, they had this saying called move at the speed of instruction. Right. And so don't think about it too much. Just learn something and go do it. Go learn something, go do it. Go learn something, go do it. Their whole motto was travel as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll see further. Like, all right, I got no other option. So let's go try it. And they said, so drive up and down the street and look for a house that looks distressed was the first order of the day. And I found one on the very first day. I was like, wow, that looks pretty distressed. And I came back, said, great, I found one. I said, okay, now hunt down the owner and submit an offer. And I was like, okay, but what if they accept it, right? Like, I don't have, what am I going to do? Don't worry about it. Just one step at a time.
Yeah.
So I was able to secure that property under contract. And I came back to my mentors, okay, all right, hot stuff, smarty pants. What do I do now? I need $400,000 for this thing, And he says, great. So this is what you're going to do. And he gave me instructions of, we built a property flyer. He said, now go to all the RIA meetings, and during their wants and haves section, go ahead and you're going to stand up, represent yourself, tell them what you have and what you're looking for. And I was like, all right. So I went and did that. He gave me some very specific instructions, a framework to work within. And I only went to 2 meetings, and I had a partner. I had a money partner who happened to have a contracting business. And that was the first deal. And because I had it under contract, I was able to carve out $26,000 of profit for myself on that deal. And the whole lesson was, see, if you would have been just a bird dog and referred this, you might have made $1,000. But because you had it under contract, you got to call the shots. Because you had it under contract, it made it much easier to find the money. Everyone's always looking for the money without a deal, and that's a really hard way to go about it.
Yep.
So those were some very invaluable lessons for me right in the beginning, and that's how it all began.
That's amazing, man. It's funny because usually these are common stories, right? Where people just walk up to the ledge, they jump off it, they build the airplane on the way down. And ultimately, right, like people think you have to have $1 million sitting in your bank account to get out there and invest and become a successful investor. And my first deal, same kind of thing. I was, 21, living at home, college debt, poor credit card debt, a couple $100 in my savings account. But I found the deal. My first mentor, I remember her telling me, going, you find the deal. If it's really a deal, the money's going to follow. And I was like, I don't know about that. And there, sure as shit, I ended up making over 100K on my very first flip, and it was off to the races. And so that was kind of your first deal. And I know in that, anytime you do one thing and you go through that entire process, not only do you just build confidence in the belief that you can do it, now it's a reality, but also you learn some of the systems and the infrastructure and the next steps in order to repeat it and scale it. So what was your overall mentality moving forward in how you could make this a real career in business for yourself? Sure.
Well, what I noticed was from those 2 meetings when I was looking for the actual money for that particular deal, it became apparent really quickly at those types of meetings, those networking events, those real estate investor meetings, that there's a lot of people there. And when you haven't done a deal, you feel like everybody's done a deal. And then once you actually done a deal, you realize nobody there has done a deal. So you like that really positioned me in my community as like the deal guy because, oh my God, he's been at 2 meetings in a row with this thing and he did a deal. And like all of a sudden you're holding court and everyone's asking you, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And I was like, wait a minute, I've only done one deal. Like I'm still looking for help. So what I did was I was like, okay, I see the value in getting up in front of people and sharing opportunity, so to speak. And so I found through that whole process and the people I had met, I found a turnkey provider from Memphis. And I said, hey, if I'm able, I can't buy this right now, I'm not in a position, but if I'm able to find somebody for you, is there a referral fee in it for me? Mm. And so I was essentially wholesaling without knowing what wholesaling was. And so I just started getting his properties, making my own flyers and going from meeting to meeting to meeting. And I'd made $3,500 a pop. And I did that over and over and over again. And that really created a reputation for me inside of the whole network. Cause everyone's like, where's he getting all these deals? How's he getting them? They didn't know I was just referring people. And then one guy came up to me, and this is kind of where it all broke open. He says, I've got these 35 properties and I need to unload them. Can you help me? I see you're out here working, you're out here hustling. Can you do them for me? I said, yeah, why not? So I got 35 deals under contract with one person, just went out, and then boy, the rest was history. From there, it just snowballed and it turned into a business.
It's amazing, man. What would you say have been some of the, biggest challenges of growing your real estate business? Because I know the level that you're playing at now, for maybe taking yourself back to the very beginning was a stretch, right? Of going like, man, if you were to look at your business today, when you were there, back in that initial space mentally, it was a stretch, right? But you figured out a way to normalize it and make that your new norm, and then step into a new level and make it your new norm. So what were some of those initial challenges that newer investors feel like is such a stretch? And how did you get through those?
Sure. Initially, I think it was just the belief. Like, wow, I wasn't sure. Initially, I wasn't sure if real estate was going to work for me, if that was going to be my thing.
Yeah.
And secondarily, I wasn't sure if I was going to work, if I was going to be any good at it. So I think getting past those beliefs initially was probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And then once you can push those aside, it's actually a pretty simple gig,
You're right.
So I think belief is the first big hurdle. Once you get past that, then you can really start moving. I'd say the biggest challenge overall, and if I look back, there was really only 2 places that I've ever lost money. And then most people, I would say, I'm pretty safe, confident in saying that most people lose their money in these 1 or 2 places. That's either a bad contractor or bad property management. And, if you get those 2 things locked in, this is a really tough thing to lose at. You know what I mean? You might miscalculate value of a property here and there, but still it's not a death sentence like a bad contractor or a bad property manager can be, and so my whole thing, I've come to say that real estate is safe. It's the people that are risky. So I think you should do as much due diligence on the people that you hire and the people that you work with, the people that you delegate tasks to, the people that you delegate responsibilities to. Do as much due diligence on them as you do the real estate, maybe even more so.
Wow, that's powerful, and I would agree with that. Of the 150 plus flips I've done in the last few years, of the 2 or 3 times I've lost, it's been contractors.
Yeah.
Right. And I could easily point the finger and be like, no, Mr. Contractor. And at the end of the day, nobody cares more about your business than you do. Right. And that due diligence process is so critical. References, totally. Checking and just following a system. I think systems have been something that have allowed, you scale through people, you scale through systems. And obviously you've done both of those things. So as you were kind of taking those next steps in your business, what led you over to the side of going, okay, I'm generating some quick cash, some injections of profit into my business. Now let's start shifting and moving a little bit more towards this residual, this mailbox money. Because that's kind of the holy grail at the end of the day, right?
Oh, yeah, I think it's the only way. It's, I read this book, you probably never heard of it, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And they introduced this concept of escaping the rat race. And there was a very simple formula. You just get your passive income to a level where it exceeds your monthly expenses and you are essentially free, right? And that, I just remember what my life was like in the music business where, I was dependent on a new release every single month. And I just had to stay ahead of the billing. Right. And I was going to do very good for myself until all the returns came in. I came crashing down. I was like, okay, if I would have been a little bit more residual income minded and not so transaction minded, the music business could have turned out very differently for myself. And so I was like, I'm not going to make that same mistake going into this new venture. How do I create the residual income? How do I start preparing for the future in case, the next Napster of real estate comes along and puts me out of business, right? So that was my big fear, and that was probably my big driving force. And so initially I started with a formula. Okay, I'm going to flip 5 and hold 1, flip 5, hold 1, and start doing really well. Okay, now we're going to go flip 4 and hold 1, flip 4 and hold 1, and flip 3, flip 2. And now my intent is to try and hold every single property that I get. But I got to the point where the residual income exceeded those monthly expenses. And I was like, boom, that's where I want to be. And that was probably less than 4 years once I made that decision to do that. And, I look at flipping and people that can create a business out of that and put the systems in place. That is, in a sense, could be residual income if you're not operating so much inside of it. But it can be a little bit longer of a path to create that comfort going down the road. You can create these mountains and piles of cash and have these fantastic paydays, but at the end of the day, you got to put that money somewhere to work for you, right? And, that type of money can get really seductive as far as, you're making 50 grand here, 100 grand there. And then like I could sell this and make 30 grand, or I can hold on to it, make $300 a month. Like that's a real decision that we've still faced to this day on a daily basis. And I'm still like, I think I want the 30 grand. Right.
Yeah.
And, but really the fastest path to freedom is choosing that $300 a month of passive income.
Yep. Playing, I call that the crock pot mentality instead of the microwave mindset. I look at flipping, which is it's been my biggest injection of cash into my business model, which has allowed me to go out and buy all the rental properties that I own. But at the end of the day, that's the microwave. It's the quick fix. It's the, the fresh hit, but the real good stuff is made in the crock pot, the long-term accumulation of the recipe coming together to create something worthwhile. And so when you were looking at this cash flow model, like, for example, if we were to say today in the current market we're in, finding cash flow in California is pretty tough. So for when you're teaching, training, talking with other individuals, and maybe just speaking from your own experience, how did you start? Where did you start with going, all right, I want cash flow. What's my next step?
So through the beginning part, when I was doing a lot of just standing up and sharing property flyers at re-events, I had met somebody that was had those 35 properties, and they were in Illinois, so it wasn't in my home state. It wasn't in California. So I just learned how to do that. I was already selling these properties from Memphis for a turnkey provider. I just saw, okay, so now we have properties in Illinois, different state, same principle. And through that is where I started to discover, because I'm born and raised in California. And when I went out there to go visit those people and those properties, it was like, wow, they have houses for $30,000.
Different world.
Are you kidding me? And I was like, these have better cap rates than the multifamilies, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, this thing's going to be 40 grand and it's going to rent for $800 a month. That's like a 2% ratio. Like, what the hell? So that's where it really clicked for me, where I could do it fast. So I just started building teams virtually and leveraging the relationships that I created. And, so I don't cash flow in California. We've got 3 properties here kind of on accident that we hold. One of them does cash flow. The other 2 are just kind of sitting there. But really our whole portfolio is across the Midwest and then down in the South.
I love it. It's funny that you say that because, I have 12 here in California. And for me, it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not finding, these kind of opportunities and deals. Like I'm seeing some of my mentors and friends and other people finding them in other states. And I went out to Texas a couple of weeks ago, and jaw just dropped to the floor, seeing how, one, the price point, 2, I was walking through and I'm, talking to a couple of my buddies who run a hedge fund out there. And I'm going, how are you going to make this, this pencil? This is a $50,000 rehab. And they're like, no, it's not. It's a $15,000 rehab. The labor, the material out here is night and day different. So let's talk a little bit real quick about if somebody does want to go find cash flow in another market, some of the critical elements and key points of building a team, of doing some of the due diligence and putting this model together so you don't fall flat on your face.
Right. Yeah. So the team is number one. So people ask, how did you pick your markets? How did you end up there? And I was like, that's where I had my best relationships. That's always my answer.
Like that.
I know people look at the economic factors and look at the job growth and what the population is doing. Like, that's secondary. You need real people there, because good people in a mediocre market can make it a fantastic market, and vice versa. Bad people in the best market can be a disaster. So I've learned that the painful way a few times. So the question was, okay, when you're looking for your team, I would start with referrals, would be the first part. The second thing would be I'd start them off very, very slow, because as exciting as it can be when you come from someplace like California, you got deep pockets, and you go to a place like $50,000 houses, I'll take 10 of them, right?
Yep.
And don't do that. So start off slow.
Prove out the model.
Yep. I would say micromanage your team in the beginning. And I would say go deep with that team and in that market and that strategy before you start going wide. It can be really tempting once things start going good, and you just have one or two successes. You're like, okay, now let's get 10 successes this month. I would say, as easy as it could be and as exciting as it is to go fast and go wide, pace yourself.
Yep.
And I would go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's, I would say, as you started doing some of that, how long did it really take you to figure out, okay, starting slow, building out the team, not necessarily micromanaging, but just really dialing in the systems, the communication, understanding the whole ecosystem of what you're building? When did you decide to say, all right, let's double down here?
Right. So that was probably about 3 years ago, but I was into it for 3 or 4 years, and I did not follow the advice I just shared with you. That's where that advice came from. It came from a lot of bad decisions and bad experiences. And we had a point, I was like, okay, whoa, that's enough. That's enough. We're not doing that anymore. And, it got really expensive. And still to this day, there's things that come up from way back then that we're still writing checks for to make right,
Got it. Yeah.
And, but once we decided, okay, well, now we're going to start slow now we've got this in place. Yeah. We doubled down probably about 3 years ago.
Okay. What's your opinion on, single family residences versus more doors under one roof?
Yeah. There's different schools of thought on both. There's advocates of both, and there's, adversaries on both. I did dive into multifamily. When I hit a couple hundred properties, single families, I was like, okay, let's go ahead and try something else. And a 40 unit opportunity came up for me. And I was like, how difficult can it be? It's just 40 houses under one roof, right? And it turned out to be a totally different animal. And I experienced a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for. So it bit me pretty hard. And here's another example. I bought the 40 unit, and then an 8 unit came up, and a 10 unit, and then a 14 unit came up. And so within 6 months, I had added an additional 100 units almost to my whole portfolio, and all of that being done virtually. And it just turned out to be way more than I could handle, and way more than my team could handle. So I am just getting out of all of that. Probably about 6 months ago, I got rid of the last one. So I'm licking my wounds. But I'm so much smarter, so much more experienced. So
Yep.
I will eventually go back into it again, but I've diversified my portfolio with notes. So we're holding on to all of our really nice performing properties. And then we've been seller financing to resident owners, all of our management challenged properties. And so we've got a good balance. We've got about 50 houses now and about 50 notes. And that's a really good balance for us. And so it's probably as smooth and as quiet as the business has ever run in the way that's working right now.
I love it. So you guys are doing seller financing, lease to own.
And we do straight seller financing.
Got it.
I don't mess with the lease to own, the rent to own like that. It's too much education for the buyer.
Yeah.
You do too much explaining to them, and sometimes the sophistication of that type of buyer isn't the greatest, and that learning curve can be really steep and long, and it takes up a lot of time. So I'd rather just say, hey, I'm going to sell it to you, and this is how much it's going to cost you a month. And it's going to be cheaper to buy my house than it is for you to rent it. So would you rather own or would you rather rent? Right.
So recapping, you got this you're doing a little flipping as it comes up and when it makes sense. Main focus, cash flow.
Yep.
Lead generation wise, being the head of the snake, without the leads, you don't have the opportunities for profit, for cash flow. How are you guys consistently bringing in leads into your business to analyze, underwrite, and see which ones make sense for you guys?
Sure. We're always got something going to direct seller. I mean, we still do direct mail in the Midwest and in the South. We're finally having a breakthrough with Facebook as far as finding sellers. That took us a long time. That was a big nut to crack for a while. But still, I would say the majority of our deals are coming through our relationships. Yep. I think, you can buy your way in and create this marketing machine. And if you got the financial resources to make that thing run, you can go fast, right? But if you take your time to create those relationships along the way, that's going to really help you go far. And that's what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah. Relationships, hands down, have been the most profitable investment I've ever made in my business. People, that human currency goes a long way in real estate.
Totally. It's funny because, buy and hold is not sexy, but it's the thing that everyone should do.
Right.
Building relationships is not sexy, but it's the thing that everybody should do.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't have that push button feel.
It's funny because, of all the realtors or investors that I've either spoke in front of or trained or worked with, and been one of those individuals, all of the sexy, the distractions, the squirrel moments are usually the ones that you said, don't ultimately lead to where we initially want to go in the first place.
Right.
And so it's hard, you got to have that discipline, right? And it goes back to the clarity piece of it as well. So as you guys are, clear on what you're looking for, you got those relationships, they're coming in, share a little bit about, for the average investor that's going, okay, man, this guy's built something amazing here. Mm-hmm. He's obviously figured out this system, rinse and repeat, scaled it. How is he able to, finance all of these things? Are you guys using a Burr method? Are you guys, private funding, hard money? How have you guys syndicated? What are you guys doing for your financing so other people might be able to model after that a little bit?
Quick answer is yes. All of that.
All of them.
Right? No, but initially we got started and it's my favorite way to do it today. That initial program that I made that investment in and the mentor that I worked with, the one little course that they had taught was creative acquisition strategies. And at that moment, I didn't have a lot of money. I was still licking the wounds from my bankruptcy. So conventional financing wasn't an option for me. So I really resonated with seller financing. So that's my favorite place to get the money. So we use a tool called the 3-option letter of intent, which presents 3 different options of how we're prepared to purchase their property. The first one is typically our lowball all cash offer where we're really going for equity. Yep. And then we give them 2 carryback options in the second and third option where we can give them a little bit more money as long as they're willing to wait a little while to get it all. And so that's really been a valuable tool for us. And so that's how we finance most of it. And we were talking, I don't know if this was before recording or after recording, when we were talking about finding, this is why when we were to find the money, if you got the deal, it's so much easier to find the deal, right? Yep. And that's a big part. That's a really powerful way and not a mysterious unicorn way of finding money. If you can present and offer somebody a return on their money better than they can get anywhere else, it's typically a pretty easy sale. So I would say between the seller and private money in that way, finding private money partners is probably the 2 most common ways or how we find the money and finance our deals. Yeah.
It's funny when you hear people say, I'm going to show you and teach you how to purchase a property with none of your own money. And people are like, that just doesn't make sense to me. And yet, once you go through it and you do it, you realize how easy it is because you're ultimately, if you find the deal, offering somebody an opportunity, not an ask.
Right.
And if they can go find that return elsewhere, they would be, right? And so that's why so many people are attracted to investing in something that's, a physical, tangible asset, collateral, and there's so many different creative ways. So I love that you guys do that. And all it takes is just understanding how to structure some of these things to make it a win-win, especially with a lot of sellers when they're already an owner of a property and you can turn them into an investor that's passive for them and give them some kind of return. It almost becomes a no-brainer for a lot of these people, right?
Right. Absolutely.
That's great, man. So as you have really, grown and scaled the business to where it's at today, what are some of the, I like using this analogy of you've built something big, and when you got a lead in, let's say, hockey, right? You're not going to be aggressive trying to score when you're up 3-1. You're going to be passing the puck around. You're going to be a little bit more defensive, a little more strategic. So what are you doing in your business right now to still keep growing, but insulating your risk, taking, some of the unnecessary, risks off the table for you as you continue to grow and scale?
Sure. I got a little rule of thumb that I would recommend for people that want to go ahead and escape the rat race, and it's what I practice myself, is to leverage as much as you possibly can to build your passive income. Just leverage, build. And once you've got your passive income to where you want it to be, then to preserve that, then you start eliminating that leverage. And so that's kind of where we are right now. We've got these notes, and we're pretty much got all of our money out of those notes. So we have no liability there. And then in our properties, we're starting to eliminate that leverage. And every time you knock one of those payments off, it actually kicks up and bumps up your cash flow. So that's what we're doing right now. And I would say, because we're cash flow centric, you're not really worried about market fluctuations too much.
Yeah.
Right. The property's never going to be worth zero. It'll go up and down, certainly, but as long as you bought it for income, the impact of that it's gonna be minimal. I mean, maybe you have to lower rents here and there because of a depressed job market or something like that.
Sure.
But it's still shelter. People still live there, and they still need it, and they got to pay for it. So, not so concerned with the shift in the market.
No, I love that. I mean, when you are playing the cash flow model, you're not too concerned about your equity because you're playing the cash flow game, right? So that makes complete sense. And I always like to ask this. We have this conversation a lot in our mastermind. And I always love to ask other investors, are you, and I'm already going to probably assume what your answer is, but I got to ask it is, are you more of a net worth guy or are you more of a cash flow guy?
Oh.
Or are you both?
Yeah. I think you start off being a cash flow guy because you want your freedom. You want that rat race escape thing, right? Cash flow is everything. You want to get your basic expenses covered. But once you've got that covered, now you can start, as the cash flow continues to grow, you can start allocating that and allowing and putting that in different places to build the net worth for you. So you're not necessarily working to build your net worth. Your cash flowing portfolio is building it for you. So that's what I would say is both, but there is a sequence to it that I would recommend. I'd go for the cash flow first so you can support yourself, and then take that excess and allow that excess to build the net worth.
So you're, cash flowing, you're financially free and independent, based on your goals. Would that be a safe assumption?
Yeah. I mean, our business is expanding. So obviously when you expand your business, you take on additional overhead.
Yep.
But at any moment I could shut it down and, head and go to a little bit of work on the expenses, and I'd be just fine. Yeah.
Right. So for you, when is enough enough?
You know what? Enough was enough, I thought, pretty soon after I originally made that escape. And, I thought it was fun to say I'm 39 years old and I'm retired. Right.
Yep.
And, that had lasted for about 30 days.
Yeah. Right.
And I just got real fidgety. I was real bored. So I found that I'm really happiest as long as I'm growing. So I don't know if I'll ever retire. I don't know if ever enough will be enough. As long as I'm in a better place right now than I was this time last year, that satisfies me. So I'm fueled by the growth.
I can relate, and I hear that, brother. I always joke around with my wife and go, I'll never retire. I'll be doing deals in my hospital bed.
Right.
Just because I love building things. I love working and towards something, a goal, achieving, whether that's cash flow, whether that's supporting other people and, achieving their goals. So I can definitely appreciate that. As we kind of come into the tail end of the interview, I wanted to just ask you a few things, being that you are an influencer and an expert in, the real estate investing space in general. What are some of the biggest challenges you see investors facing as we move into the future?
Into the future?
Yeah. With the changing landscape of the market space, with just the market, economics in general, with the tools and resources, with some of the big players like Zillow and Open Door and some of these, other competitors coming in, making it maybe a little bit harder for the mom and pops to compete. What do you see, and what will these people need to do in order to still achieve their goals and thrive as a real estate investor moving forward?
Right. I don't see any significant disruption in real estate until I could see potentially AI, artificial intelligence. When you can view an open house from your own house.
Yeah.
think that could have a little bit of a shift in the market. That could definitely feel that. But I think I don't know, we're probably 15, 20 years away from that, I'm thinking. So, and all that to say, it's such a people business, right? It's every piece of real estate you buy or sell is going to be from or to another person. Typically when people are buying a house or buying a property, it's a significant investment that they're making. And by pushing a button like at Zillow, I don't see that really gaining traction. I think people want to go touch it. They want to see it. They want to work with a real person. So I don't see any real technology anytime in the near future changing the landscape at all. I think that the biggest thing would be recognizing it is a people business, honing and practicing your people skills just as you would practice and hone your golf swing or playing the guitar. I think that's key. And I think having faith that it's going to work. I mean, real estate's produced more wealth than any other industry or any other investment vehicle. And then having faith in yourself that you'll actually work, I think is key. And I think, anyone can do this, right?
Yeah.
But not everybody will. And I think there lies the opportunity for a lot of people, is that knowing that not everybody's going to stick it out. And I think consistency that wins every single time.
Yep.
So prepare for the marathon and not so much the sprint. And I think the future is really bright for real estate. I mean, the supply and demand demographics, or the supply and demand thing is there. We have a shortage on houses. Each generation is bigger than the previous. I mean, there's enough people walking the earth right now to see to it that the value of houses never really experiences a crash.
Yeah.
So I think real estate is like, gosh, if you don't have it incorporated into some part of your portfolio, I think you're making a mistake.
Yeah, man, I couldn't have said it any better. That supply and demand is what you said, something I'm always paying attention to, especially now, with the shortage of housing in the rental space, moving forward, continuing to see more shortage of housing. And if you're a landlord, and you run a business like a business and do it well, you're definitely going to come out ahead in the big picture. So as we wrap up, brother, how can all of those, first and foremost, man, thank you. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. And, I've been following what you're up to for the last few years and just love what you guys got going on. You got a great community. You got a lot of great stuff that other people can benefit from. So for those that are listening right now that, want to keep up with what you're doing, check out what you guys got going on. One, where can they find you? Two, what are some of the platforms that you are most active on that they might be able to engage with you?
Sure. Well, thanks for that. And congratulations on your podcast. It's great what you're doing. And thanks for having me. So if you're listening right now, obviously, where and how to find a podcast. So my podcast is Epic Real Estate Investing. We just started our 9th year. So we've been doing this for quite a while. And so you can find us there. Second is we just launched a new, I'm active on Instagram, just kind of started that in the last year and a half. So at Epic Real Estate. And then the third thing would be, if we just started this new case study program, this new pilot program to create more case studies. We created more case studies in 2017 than we ever have before, like successful case studies. And so we really kind of clicked with something. So as far as when it comes to creating a business, starting a business with little to no money, we were kind of talking about that a little bit. And a lot of people talk about it and they're talking about doing the real estate. But then when you get in and you realize, wow, it actually takes a little bit of money to run the business. Like the real estate part, we can do that without money, but running the business. And so we're putting together a pilot program of how I built my business and going to try and create some real rock stars out of it. So if anyone wants to participate in that, it's free. It's actually better than free. I'll actually pay you to complete the course as long as you follow through. And you can go to freerealestateinvestingcourse.com and check out the details. If it's something that you like to participate in, I'd love to have you, love to help you and make you a rock star case study yourself.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to include all of that in the show notes with all the links, all the good resources that we've talked about today. Final question for you, man. What, if you had a crystal ball, where's the market going in the next 12 months?
Oh gosh, if I had a crystal ball, you know what? I heard a good theory on this and I really kind of thought about it and I really believe it. I think, and this is not a political statement. Okay. This is just looking at all the factors at play. I think as long as Donald Trump is in office, I think we're going to be fine. Not because I think he's going to do a great job. I think he's going to do whatever he can to make sure that nothing collapses on his watch. Now, it may be a disaster the day he walks out of office because of what he's done to uphold the
House
economy.
cards.
Yeah. So I think he's going to do whatever he can. He'll probably might even, who knows what he's capable of. And I really have got no opinion one way or the other politically, but I think he's got such an ego that he would mortgage the future of this country to make sure that it's solid while he's in office. So he'll always be able to say that. So I think the next 2 or 3 years, I think we're good to go.
I was going to say, hey, if you're reading between the lines right now, make your moves over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
And
I think you gotta move really quickly.
Yep. And also know that there might be some opportunity right around the corner as long as you're not over leveraged or making poor choices where you get caught with your pants down. You can take advantage of what we got going on right now and also, forecast for making some moves and pivoting and shifting to where those opportunities will be at if and when the market does correct. Well, Matt, brother, it's a pleasure, man. Look forward to staying connected, supporting you guys in your community in any way we can. And until next time, I'll see you on the flip side.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. See you soon.
Well, that does it for this interview with Matt. Super inspirational story. And if you don't follow Matt, I'll go ahead and include all of those links in the show notes, in the show description. The dude puts out some high quality content. He knows what he's talking about. He's obviously figured out this cash flow model, this lead generation model, and really now has paid it forward to so many people. And he puts out a ton of great information on his podcast as well. So we be sure to check out the links in the show notes if you want to pop over and follow him on those different platforms. Anything we talked about will be available in those show notes as well. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, be sure to smash that subscribe button where we release these interviews each and every week, along with all kinds of other real estate investing advice, tutorials, systems training, you name it with real estate investing. We're working on getting it on the YouTube channel. So be sure to check it out and give this video a like if you're watching on YouTube. If you are not subscribed to us on iTunes yet, please do so and leave a review. If you got some great information, how we let the world of iTunes know that there's value in this is by getting a review from you. So that is greatly appreciated. And overall, hopefully you got some kind of nugget that you can take today and implement. All it takes is one little conversation, a strategy, a system, a tweak that might completely transform the results you're getting right now. So take whatever it is that you found today and implement it. Take action on it. And next week, we got another great show and podcast coming up for you. Can't wait to see what kind of wisdom this guest drops on you that completely transforms your business, because there was a lot that we covered. So be sure to tune in next week. I'll see you guys on the flip side.